You really had me going there.
Well, you
for
know,
a while.
my mind, I'm wearing my Google contact lenses right now.
Oh, yeah, right.
So
Forget Google Glass, Google contact lenses. Now, why don't we...
yeah, let's get our guest.
Let's get our guest here before he catches his breath, because I want to hear that heavy out of breath.
To catch a bus to the next destination.
Please.
Welcome.
Welcome to the show.
Hi there.
Did you bring more bus drivers with you? You have a whole crew?
No. Everybody else is working today, and I just Johnny told me yesterday, and at a meeting we had at 7 o'clock, and said,
Now, you got to speak right into the mic.
"Oh, okay, I'll speak right into the mic."
Yeah, there you go.
There we go.
Don't hold it. Don't hold it. Just see if we can position that so that it's comfortable for you.
High chair.
That's okay.
So this is...
That'll work. There we go. How's that?
Welcome back to the Howie Rose Show, and we have with us now Jim. What's your last name?
Fouts, Fouts.
Jim Fouts, a CCTA bus driver in the flesh, the real deal. We've been pining to get someone of your ilk in here for a couple weeks, and it's very exciting to have you here for reals.
And it's always good to hear someone tell me I'm of an ilk, because I never realized I was before. So I feel like I'm part of a movement now.
You're one of these guys with the bus driver persuasion.
Yes, I am. Been a bus driver for 10 years, 4 years in San Diego. I've worked for 6 years in Vermont.
Uh-huh. And why did you move to Vermont? Did it have anything to do with being a bus driver?
Well, actually, it did, believe it or not. I wanted to move someplace where I could live a little bit more in the country, but still work in transit, because it's a career I really enjoy. I like helping people. I'm not smart enough to be a doctor. So, I mean, I help people by helping them out on the bus. I'm the good bus driver, the guy who gets out of the seat to help people with things if I have to. I don't mind, and I don't mind waiting. And I just like meeting a whole bunch of different people, and I like driving a big old vehicle around. So it seemed to work out for me as a career choice. And then here, I can live in Burlington, and a half hour away, I live in the country, so it worked out for me.
Right on. Awesome. So tell us about this whole strike business.
Well, I mean, where to start? The first year, I really didn't get involved in anything at CCTA. I just kind of tried to fit in and fit into my new home and learn to know things. But then,
and everyone's there is union?
Yes, we're all members of Teamsters Local 597. It's a closed shop. You have to be in the union. If you don't join the union, you pay association fees, which are, I think, $3 or $2 less than the union dues. But we only have one person who's not, and he wants to be back in, I think. And so we're going to work that out, try and see if we can't get him back in the union as a member in good standing. And the Teamsters came through for us. Local 597 leadership, Tony St. Hilaire, was awesome. And I couldn't be more proud than I am today to be a Teamster.
So what went into describe for us the process leading up to the strike? Did you have meetings? Were you getting more and more frustrated with management's lack of response, and then someone introduced this idea, well, maybe we're going to have to strike to get some action on this? Yeah,
it's a pretty cut and dry process in Vermont, and in most states. We about a year ago, we started talking about our contract, discussing what it was we were looking for. We knew we had some goals in mind, and then we started having meetings. Then in May of last year, 2013, they started meetings with management, our negotiation team, which is our three stewards, who are like our advocates, kind of. And so our three stewards and our business agent, Tony St. Hilaire, started meeting. And with the company, and the company's negotiation team really didn't seem that interested in the negotiations. In fact, the general manager of CCTA actually fell asleep twice during the negotiations.
What? No.
Yeah, no joke. We have a picture. I can bring a photographic evidence. I don't have it with me. I can email you photographic evidence of him sleeping at one of the negotiation sessions. He really didn't seem connected with the negotiations.
Wow.
So then in Vermont, what you do is you go through a process of negotiation to impasse, mediation, and then fact-finding. A fact-finder is basically a glorified attorney who comes up and looks at both sides and makes a determination based upon, well, I think that everything the company wants is the right thing, so I'm going to write this thing out, and it's a complicated piece of paper that says the company gets everything they want. Then after that, you can either go settle for binding arbitration, or you can go on strike. Or continue to negotiate. And we continued to negotiate without a contract for a very long time. And finally, it was decided that we'd reached a point where the company made one last and final offer. We rejected it. I believe it was a 54-5 vote to reject it, and after that, we made the decision to go on strike. Binding arbitration never really works out. It's sort of like the fact-finding. The binding arbitrator takes the fact-finding report, puts his name on it, and says, this is what I think you should do.
Okay, so what were the issues involved? What were you guys asking for that management was like, nah?
Well, management was most intransigent about the disciplinary provisions we wanted. We wanted some protections on discipline because we were seeing far too many drivers. We call it predatory management. They were being badgered and picked on by management, and consequently, people were losing their jobs, getting suspended. There was a lot of stress on the job. They really didn't want it, our version of discipline. They didn't want. They wanted to give us 13.5-hour spread times. If you're familiar with split shifts at all,
no.
That's where you start work, say, in the morning at 7 o'clock. Yeah, and you work for a few hours, then you have a block of time in between where you're off, and then you work, say, until 7:30 to finish your day.
That sucks.
It sucks, and it's not like you have the time off. And there's actual evidence out there that says a split shift is as fatiguing as working the whole time. And so they wanted to expand that to 13.5 hours. They wanted another hour of our day. And I look at it as management. In our case, it's not a for-profit company, so it's not the rich and powerful, but just management wanting to shift the burden of making good work schedules and safe work schedules onto the backs of the workers, and at the same time creating unsafe work schedules and burdensome work schedules. They didn't even care about the fact that we would be sacrificing more than half of our day to the company.
How many employees does CCTA employ?
Overall, it's close to 100, but there's 72 unionized bus drivers as well as some unionized maintenance workers.
And, okay, so there's a split shift issue. Mm-hmm. Anything else?
They wanted part-time drivers, and it was really hard to figure out what they wanted with the part-time drivers, because I'll be honest with you, I don't think they knew what they wanted with the part-time drivers. And as negotiations went on, our negotiation team told me, one of our lead negotiators told us that it became apparent to him that they really didn't know why or what they were going to do with part-time drivers if we gave them to them.
Well, of course, instantly I think, part-time, that means we screw the worker out of health benefits because they're part-time.
Correct. And we exactly, and we initially entered these negotiations with a very strong stance that we wanted 0 part-time drivers. We want full-time jobs for people in Vermont, full-time jobs so they can afford to send their kids to school, and with benefits and with health care and with vacations and all the things that unions are all about. And that's what we were about. As the negotiations went along and it became apparent that we were going to have to make some concessions, and I want to state very clearly, we conceded out our, we conceded and conceded. We bent over backwards to come to their side of the table, and they almost never made any concessions. So that's one of the reasons we went on strike. We did decide to give them some part-time drivers, and we have language in there that protects full-time jobs. We felt that was a concession we could make, but we couldn't concede on safety. 13.5 hours is too long. It's unsafe. You guys probably have heard about the crash in Chicago where the L train went off the tracks and landed on an escalator. Thank God nobody was killed. A recent crash at BART, Bay Area Rapid Transit in San Francisco, the same thing. And it's always driver fatigue. You hear that constantly mentioned. The subway driver or whatever, the metro train they have in Washington, D.C., that driver was exhausted and tired and said that he dozed off. They're called micro naps. You can't micro nap when you're driving a 26,000-pound vehicle with 50 people on them.
Right.
So we just felt safety. And safety, and they offered us a retro pay package. Do you know what retro pay is?
No, tell us.
Retroactive pay is where, we were supposed to have a contract July of 2013. And let's say they had given us a 25-cent an hour raise. We were supposed to get that raise for the last 10 months, but we didn't get it. So retro pay is just them paying us back for that time. And at CCTA, it had always been an element of our negotiations. We always got retroactive pay. The offer they made that insulted us and we voted down offered us basically what I consider a disgusting bribe. They offered to give people who had been there for more than a year, $500, and more than 2 years, $1,000. But it left 14 of our newest drivers getting absolutely nothing. And I'm so proud of myself. Yeah, I'm proud of myself, and I'm proud of my coworkers, because we said, if you're not going to give those 14 guys anything, then you don't give us anything. We want to share and share alike. So we held the ground there in that safety, and now we have safe work schedules, and we're comfortable with them.
Hey, MC Formless here. Now, I'm just curious about, have you learned more about Teamster and Teamster life and your brothers and sisters in the Teamsters than you ever wanted to know? And did you all get along fairly well throughout the process with inside?
That is an excellent question. You are a cool dude. The fact of the matter is, we work alone. People don't think we don't have common lunch rooms and common lunch breaks. Most of us take our lunch breaks. I work nights, so I take my lunch break usually by myself. And we don't spend a lot of time in the break room. We're busy people. And so we really didn't know each other. And 3 weeks on the line, and we got to know each other so well. And I have to say, it made us closer than ever. It didn't. We had very few divisions. Yeah, I mean, hell, we're a family. You had arguments. You argue with your family. I mean, I didn't like my Aunt Natty, you know? I mean, it's just the way it is. But we got along, and we get along, and we're stronger and closer than ever right now.
And what about on the other side, learning more about management of CCTA and knowing you have to go back to work for them and knowing all the details? Does that, in any way shade you or maybe shade the brothers' perspective of what they're getting into when they just go to work now? Or?
You know what? Our business agent told us, he said, do your job, by the rules, follow the rules exactly. Don't go in and meet with management by yourself. If management wants to talk to you, you get your representation, have somebody there with you. But more importantly than anything, and he said this to us, and I've said it, and we've all said it all along, is as long as we stay unified, and as long as we have the community, and the community has said they've got our back, I can report to the community, other members who are in touch with the Workers' Center and other groups, we can report to the community. If they start to revert to their old bad habits of predatory management, of hunting us down and treating us like dogs, we can go to the public, we can go to the city council, and we can have an out call for the public to come out and do something for us.
What is predatory management? Does it have to do with the discipline issues that you were referring to?
Yeah, predatory management is following someone around all day long in a car and sitting around with a radar gun checking your speed and making a rule that you have to go 5 miles an hour than the speed limit. And if you're going 2 miles an hour above, if the speed limit's 25, you're going 22, and they've said you have to go 20, then they badger you about that. Or it's predatory management is looking at video of someone about one thing and finding something else. I'll give you a perfect example. We had a driver, she's got a pronounced Milton accent. And she told a customer that the customer, very politely, she said, you can look it up in the booklet. Well, it didn't sound like booklet. It sounded like something somewhat similar that starts with an F and ends with a T, and it's 2 words. And so management looked at the video and said that she had cursed at this customer. But one of the things they wanted in this contract was the ability to use anonymous complaints to discipline us. But in our previous contract and our new contract, because we fought, we have the right to know the names of our accusers. And our stewards, acting as advocates, very politely called up this woman and said, did our driver curse at you? And she said, no, she was very polite. I called about something completely different from that. Management didn't like that driver. There's a supervisor who had a vendetta against that driver. And so that management wanted to use completely different evidence from the video, from what the original discussion on the video was. It wasn't even a complaint. It was actually a compliment. They wanted to use that as an opportunity to discipline a driver. I consider that predatory. I consider looking at a whole day's work and picking little tiny bits and pieces out of that day's work and lumping them all together and firing somebody for it. I consider that predatory.
Yeah, and how insane. I mean, do they really want to go through the process of having to hire a replacement bus driver and put them through the,
Shockingly, apparently they don't care. And one of my fellow drivers, he talks about it all the time. He says, don't they understand that it costs money to train people and to get people through their probationary period and everything else? But apparently they don't care. And one of the reasons they don't care is because it's taxpayer money. They don't have to go to anybody and show a profit or a loss, and so they, apparently because it's taxpayer money in general that we're funded. I
see. See, I didn't realize this. I didn't know the CCTA was a branch of the government.
Yes, we're municipal employees. It's basically contracted by VTrans to perform the service. and then they're chartered under the Vermont Municipal Labor Law. And CCTA gets about, last time if I remember correctly, about 74% of our operating and capital budget comes from government grants and taxes, from money from Burlington, money from Essex Junction, money from all the participating communities, plus money from the state, plus the federal grants. And
so they best not be wasting our money.
no, you know what? The taxpayers pay for it both ways. They pay when they get on the bus and put in their $1.25, and they pay for it when they go to work and work all day and get their taxes taken out. And it comes from all three of their taxes. It comes probably from all four. It definitely comes from their state taxes, their property taxes, and from their federal income taxes, and may well come from sales taxes. I'm not that well versed on the subject.
Mm-hmm. Now you're pretty well versed though on
I spend a
all
lot of
this
time on
stuff,
this.
right? Are you perhaps going to have a career ahead of you as being more, of a union guy than a bus driver?
I don't know about that. I consider myself sort of an unofficial, unpaid union labor organizing activist. And I was much more involved in the past, and I took a little bit of a break there to settle out some personal things. But now that I've gotten back into it, it's the kind of a horse that once you get on it, you really can't go too long without riding that horse again. It's a lot of fun. It's a buck and bronco, and it's a roller coaster. But organizing people is fun work.
And super important. Not everyone can do that work, and if you have those skills and talents, maybe you're being called.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I'm gonna ride this Ferris wheel as long as I can and see where it takes me. But the one thing I can say is there's an awful lot of workers in this state that need protection. Not all of them are in a union, and there's a lot of people in this state who are trying to form unions. There's a big multi-billion-dollar corporation up at UVM that treats their workers like garbage. And you guys know who I'm talking about. It's called Sodexo, and they don't have benefits, and they get laid off in the summer, and they don't have any union protection. I wouldn't mind getting those people into a union. The United Staff, GMTA workers aren't in unions. That's a division of sort of GMTA is the umbrella organization. CCTA and GMTA are like two divisions. GMTA drivers are part-time. Non-union workforce doesn't get benefits. And if you remember the crash from 2009, the Montpelier bus crash, that was a non-union driver who, unfortunately, the state troopers determined in their findings that he had dozed off, and that caused a horrific crash that fortunately didn't result in any loss of life or serious injury, but it could have been much worse. And so there's all kinds of people in this state, in unions and out of unions, who need protections, and I wouldn't mind seeing this whole state union. Vermont should be more. This should be a state where workers' rights are respected, because it proclaims, people here claim that this is a different place. Then let's make it a different place. Let's make it a place where workers' rights are protected.
Yeah.
This might be sort of a naive, somewhat question, but so how does one, if unions do get bigger and more powerful, how does one prevent corruption from happening within the unions themselves? Are there
that's an excellent
place?
question, because I'm in a union that was notorious for the corruption in the union, the Teamsters Union. As you know, the former president from the 1960s and 70s is probably buried under a goalpost at Giant Stadium, for all we know. Jimmy Hoffa, yeah. There was massive corruption, and it still is in some of the unions. But you know what? Unions work best. And like one of my favorite unions is UE, United Electrical and Radio and Mechanical, or something like that.
Machine.
Yeah. Oh, I've got
I'm reading it off your chest.
But the thing is, a union works best when it's a ground-up union, when the rank and file makes decisions, when the rank and file has power, and the way that you do that is for the rank and file to do just what we did. The rank and file takes to the streets and takes over the union. And when the rank and file is in charge and it's a democratic union, then it tends to not be a corrupt union. So things can be done to stop that.
Now, let's go back to the difference between GMTA and CCTA. GM, I assume, is Green Mountain Transit Authority.
Green Mountain Transit Authority. They have there's a St. Albans. They do bus service to Stowe. In the wintertime, they do a lot of skiing service. I've never worked there, and I'm not that familiar with
So they're outside. CC is what, Chittenden County?
Yep, Chittenden County Transportation Authority.
And so the CCTA is unionized, and the rest of the state is not? Is that
correct?
Wow.
Correct. And then, the rest of the state, GMTA is this is all mostly northern Vermont. You also have like ACTR, which is a transit company that operates in basically Middlebury. They're totally separate. They have their own ownership, their own board, their own rules. I know very little about them. But GMTA is actually a sister company, if you will, to CCTA. We're managed by the same people, and so they do like St. Albans, Montpelier, Barrie, a lot of places that the CCTA buses don't go. They go there. They're a little bit smaller. They drive those van-like looking things. The little sort of look like RVs with a lot of seats in them.
The short bus.
Yeah.
Well, this is such an interesting situation because you have these two companies managed by the same management. It's almost like an experiment. One is unionized, one is not. Everything else, more or less, is somewhat similar. I mean, right?
Yeah.
And GMTA, I think those bus drivers secretly wish they had the deal the CCTA bus drivers have.
Yeah, I can't speak for them, but I would certainly relish the opportunity and may try and find some time in the future. In fact, probably will try and find some time in the future to work with our new business agent, who's doing a terrific job, and maybe go up there and talk to him and find some time. But the thing is, we're going to have to be careful because management at CCTA in the past, Montpelier Wheels was taken over by GMTA when it was managed by Chris Cole. And they busted the union there. They got them out of the union. That used to be a union company. It was taken over by CCTA, and it's a long and complicated story, but they eventually got out of the union, decertified from the Teamsters. So there's probably still some bad feelings there. But, time heals all wounds, so...
Well, now maybe you could help us and give us advice, because we're having some problems right here. You see at the Radiator. I mean, we have a tyrant for a boss. It's like this guy's always looking on our shoulder. I have a feeling this place is bugged. I mean, I have a feeling they put microphones.
They
in
might
here,
be listening to us right now.
Cameras and the whole thing.
Yeah, check it out. We got cameras watching us. Look at that.
Break time for piss is very.
No break time.
I know. So you have
should we
any
unionize?
You think we can? Should we go to his office and say something? Should we start with negotiations, or do we just go right for the?
Definitely, you have to get 30% of your workforce.
Wait, that's two of us. Wait,
that's really one of us is more than yeah. So we're already
You sign the petition and you go to the board and you get yourself certified as a bargaining unit, and then you have an election and more than 50% vote for a union. Well, then you're in a union.
Dude, I'll vote for you.
Okay,
let's do this. We can do this together.
Can we do a sit-in in the
absolutely.
office? Just turn off the station. We'll go do a sit-in.
Jim, your days are numbered here.
Talk about the disciplinary aspect being set up. Yeah.
So if that's your boss, looks like a vicious. This is a pit bull there.
Actually, he is now, but
I'm afraid to speak for fear of retribution.
There you go.
Predatory management. Well, you're looking at them.
A good thing for me, I'm familiar with the cameras and the microphones, so this is all right.
Do you guys have cameras on you in the buses?
We don't have a camera on us. I worked at San Diego Transit, and we had cameras on us. You get used to it, and I'll be honest, the drivers never wanted to pull the cameras off the buses because they're there for the public safety, and we have had vile, disgusting criminals captured by the police because of the use of our surveillance cameras to provide them with evidence. And so we want those cameras on the buses. We just don't want management to use them for a fishing expedition to find me picking my nose sometime in the day and use that as an opportunity to say that was a bad customer service move. Probably would be, but...
And what about P breaks? How do you guys get?
Well, it depends.
It
depends. You find time and you make time, and in the
drink less, I'm sure. Before
a lot of drivers do dehydrate.
What about just having
themselves.
a catheter?
Well, there you go. I never even
with a little
thought of that.
hose that goes discreetly outside the bus,
and that sounds comfortable to
save
me.
time. Don't even have to.
That sounds like a reasonable compromise to make the boss's job easier, so they can just schedule us to drive 10 hours straight, and it makes things easier for them. I never thought of the catheter idea.
They could also make the seat you're sitting in kind of like a porta potty. So
there you go. You guys have good ideas.
Roll down the road.
I know the board at CCTA.
Management potential.
Yes.
Yeah, you guys. The board at CCTA is looking for people to come in. I heard that some of them were ready to resign after yesterday. The board meeting was pretty interesting from what I hear. I wasn't there, but I heard some interesting things about it. They didn't even have a copy of the contract they were getting ready to vote on because they had to ratify it as well. Basically, they had to accept the contract that we ratified yesterday. And my friend told me that they were searching around for an updated copy of the contract, and they didn't have one.
Well, that's astounding.
And he offered to let him use his, and finally he said, "Forget it, I'm not going to let you use mine." And so he just sat down, and it was pretty ludicrous. And these people, I don't mean to.
Go ahead, go for it.
Yeah, there's board members that are okay. I won't use any names of any of the board members. There's a board member who I know is okay and who actually rides the bus, but to tell you the truth, I honestly don't believe many of the board members ever ride the bus. And if I was the chairman of that board, I'd make it a rule that you can't even serve on this board unless you ride the bus once a week. I mean, how can you make decisions on something you never are on, you know? I'm going to get somebody to build an airport and not have a pilot on the designing, commission for it, and then they've got people who've never ridden a bus who are on that board.
That's how we felt about psychedelics. The people that created a law for them never actually tried them to figure out what they were busting us for.
Yeah, I never even asked you guys, what's the drug testing policy here?
That's right. We're about to find out.
We get drug tested, so...
Now, I'm just curious, when the moment came through, when the agreement was made, was it like a loud hurrah, or were you like on Facebook this morning, be like, "Hey, we did it, hooray"?
Well, the celebration that took place on Cherry Street was really, really raucous, and really, really a lot of people talking, a lot of emotion. I mean, I sometimes get choked up even now. A lot of emotion to it. But when we finally reached the point where we'd gone through the contract and we were ready to vote, and everybody knew we were going to pass this thing, and everybody, it was like a really slow breaking dawn. It was like the sun slowly coming up over the horizon. People realized, wait a minute, we didn't just win. We didn't just squeak by. We kicked their ass. And we really did. We got damn near everything we wanted. I'm sorry if my language is bad.
No, that's fine. So what do you suppose... Okay, they ratified the contract you wanted without even having a copy of it in their possession.
They found a copy. They found a copy and printed it out, and they looked at it and discussed it.
What do you suppose... why did they finally decide to go ahead and give you what you want?
The board?
Yeah.
I think if the board had turned that contract down after what this city has been through, it would have been, it would have been like a scene from a Frankenstein movie with the pitchforks and the torches and the community marching down to Shelburne and finding them. It would have been ugly, ugly, ugly. They had no choice.
We're talking with CCTA bus driver Jim Fouts.
Yeah.
Here on the Howie Rose Show. The phone number is 861-9666 if you want to chime in. It's 861-9666. So... Fantastic. So it's a new day.
Yeah.
A new day down at CCTA. All the bus drivers are smiling.
I think so. I think we're glad to be back to work. I told somebody yesterday, they said, "What are you going to do?" And I said, "I'm going to go home and sleep for about 25 hours." And I said, "Wait a minute, I can't sleep for 25 hours. I have to work tomorrow." And I never thought this would sound so great to say I have to work tomorrow. But I just want to get back out there. I worked this afternoon. I want to get back out there. I want to help people. My first run today is to go to Burlington High School and pick up the high school kids. And the high school kids, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, on the first day of our strike, it was below zero when it started. And 70 high school kids marched from CCTA to their school following the bus route.
Wow.
That chokes me up.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No.
I can't thank those kids enough.
Live tears in the Howie Rose Show. That's what we're all about.
That's what I hear. That's your motto. But I mean, I'm going to be really happy to see those kids. And I've been going to the school. We had something called Meet the Driver, which I really think that some of the things we did here could be a template for other contract campaigns and organizing between community, because the community supported us. And I think CCTA kept delaying this thing. They wanted to bust the union. And they wanted us to break down and give them whatever they wanted, and for us to be crushed and defeated. And every time they tried something to defeat us, the community's support and the drivers got stronger. And we came back to the first vote that we had was a 50-something. It was an overwhelming no vote. The second vote was unanimous, and the third vote, after they thought they had beat us down by taking away our health care and giving us all this paperwork telling us how expensive it was going to be for us to buy our own health care and all this other stuff, and they thought they'd beat us down just sufficiently, and they made that insulting offer to us that still didn't include other people, everybody getting some retro pay, and in fact, they offered us the 13.5-hour spread time, and if you worked if your spread time was longer than 12 and a half hours, you got $1.50 extra. So if you did that 5 days a week, I think you got an extra $7.50 for the week to sacrifice over half of your daily life to the company. By golly, aren't they just generous people?
Yeah, well, like that split shift, that would involve typically like what kind of hour? Like when would you start in the morning, for instance?
Well, a lot of the drivers start sometime between 6 and 7 because we do the school runs.
And then with the split shift, what time would they actually finish up?
They might finish at, say, 8 o'clock and then come back at 2 or 1 or something like that. A lot of people have, some of the drivers do like them shifts. I mean, you got to be honest. There's something for everybody in this world. I mean, there's a kink for everybody. So you go, some of the drivers go home and they walk their dog and they cook and they take care of the garden and do whatever they do. But a lot of the drivers live out. I live in Fairfax. Some of the drivers live as far as Morrisville and Swanton and Barrie. And so you tack an hour onto a 13-and-a-half-hour spread time, and you can't afford to drive home. You're driving all the way to Swanton. That costs big bucks in gas.
Yeah.
So they spend their whole day sitting around CCTA in the break room. And that's not restful. In fact, sometimes the conversations in the break room could probably be more stressful than work. So, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
The 12 and a half hours was fine. We're going to stay with that. And offering us $7.50 was such an insult that 62-0 we voted that down.
I gotta say, I think there was actually one winner that came out of the strike, and that was the cab drivers. Man, they should take you all out to drinks someday for sure, because they were loading it up, definitely.
We had a cab driver who said, "Now I know what your job is like." He says, "I haven't been out of my seat for 12 hours." So yeah, they were busy. But the sad thing is, and I don't want to make light of it, is the fact that we have a lot of customers can't afford to take cabs.
Yeah.
And we had people walk in places they shouldn't have been walking, distances they shouldn't have been walking. Breaks my heart to think about all the people that I know on the bus, and I see them every day, and I may not know their names, but I know where they get off, and if they fall asleep and nod off, I stop at their stop and wake them up and make sure they get off. And to know that those people weren't getting the absolute, I'll match our customer service against any bus company in America, any bus company in the world. We kick ass. We are the best customer service there is going on a bus, and go out of our way to help people.
You make me want to sell my car and start taking the bus around.
Sell your car and start taking the bus around.
You as a driver and this kind of community to join in. That's amazing.
And if you sell your car and you start taking the bus around, I guarantee that you will fight with us to not have another strike.
I knew that was the toughest part when I saw everybody striking, was for people to know the people that were being disenfranchised at the moment were the very people they're trying to help the most. And what a conundrum that.
Yeah,
real big.
That hurt a lot. But the good thing is, these same people that were the most affected came out every day and thanked us, and every day. And I actually know some drivers who gained weight because of all the people bringing us banana bread and muffins and bagels and pizza. I've eaten so much Leonardo's pizza, I feel like a Leonardo's pizza.
At least you're walking around in circles.
That's right. We got our exercise.
Now, so was there any pay during those 3 weeks you guys were on strikes? How did that work?
The first week we got nothing. That's the Teamster bylaws. You go on strike the first week, you don't get anything. The second week moving forward, as long as the strike might last, you get 4 times your monthly dues, minus the taxable portion of your monthly dues, I think it's called. So basically we got $204 a week. And so we were living on our savings. And for some of us, it was extremely tough. And in fact, for all of us, it was tough. I don't care how much money. You go 3 weeks without making a dime, making $400 instead of what we would have ordinarily made. It hurts. And so it's very nice that the Teamsters have its strike benefit. And it's unfortunate that, unlike New York State, where you can get unemployment benefits after 7 weeks if you're on strike, in Vermont you're considered voluntarily off work, so you can't collect any unemployment.
That's interesting. We think of Vermont as having the most progressive, liberal laws usually.
Not in labor laws. In labor laws, Vermont's draconian. Actually, if you do some studying up on Vermont labor laws, I mean, it's a right to work. What's called. It's not a right to work state. It's an at-will state. So if you're employed by Walmart and they just don't like the cut of your jib, they can fire you. They can fire you for almost any reason if you're not in a member of a protected class and being discriminated against. So Vermont has low wages overall. Vermont doesn't have a lot of protection. I'm from California. California workers have a lot of protections. In Vermont, you don't have a lot. The Workers Center people, who I can't even thank enough, Vermont Workers Center gets a big shout out because these guys work, or most of them are volunteers. The few people employed there don't make a lot of money, and they bust their butts for working people. And they said how much it hurts them when people call in and say, I work at Walmart and they've dogged me and treated me like crud. And they say, well, we're sorry, you don't have a union. We can't help you. And so, there's two ways to look at this. You can try and change the attitude of the state legislature, and I've really learned a lot about politicians the last 3 weeks and just how smarmy they can be. To be honest, a lot of people said this happened because Bernie Sanders got involved. This happened because Shumlin got involved. The fact of the matter is, they got involved when they knew we were going to win. And if I remember correctly, it was on Wednesday or Tuesday that Shumlin said that both sides needed to behave like adults. Well, Governor Shumlin, if you happen to listen to this show, that was an insult to me and an insult to my fellow drivers. We've been behaving like adults all along, sir. And the idea that you hopped on the bandwagon after we soundly thrashed them really, really, really disgusts me. So you get a no vote from me next time you run, pal.
Uh-huh.
Not that I'm strong-minded about that.
He's quivering because he does listen. I know.
And what about Miro Weinberger? Did he have a role?
Miro Weinberger was basically he met with our stewards and discussed. I don't know if I'm supposed to talk about this or not. I don't care. Fire me and I'll fight it in court and win. He met with our steward along with another city council member and discussed a plan for us to go back to work. Return to work and continue what somebody called a working strike. We're going to go back to work and continue to bargain. And so that was when we had the 62-0 vote, and one of our members who was one of the members who was a little ambivalent about the strike and one who was hurting a lot, with all the stuff. And she's not very outspoken, not someone to stand up in a big crowd and speak a lot of things. I'm sorry, I keep hitting that thing. She stood up and said, "Why are we going to give up? Why are we going to give up what we have now? We're in the strong position." And she said 72 hours. 72 hours is going to make the difference. And she was right, almost to the minute. And I was so proud of her. And I want to emphasize something. Half of our drivers got absolutely nothing out of this strike. In fact, they lost 3 weeks' pay because they're the senior drivers. They're the guys that have been at CCTA for 20, 15, 20, 30 years. This wasn't about getting them money. The 12.5-hour spread time never affected them because only the low guys on the totem pole take those runs.
I see.
None of this stuff affected them. The 14 guys not getting any retro pay, that didn't affect them. The discipline, most of these guys have been here so long they've learned to roll with the punches, and so they come in, they do their job, they go home, and yet there they were, these guys with nothing to gain, out there fighting for a principle. That's what I call honor.
Yeah. Now, who was the city councilor that also was endorsing the working strike?
That would be Karen Paul, if I remember correctly. And I want to emphasize that Karen Paul and Tom Ayers made a very principled stand that got them some guff from their fellow city councilors. I mean, I try and be honest about things. Gets me in trouble a lot. At that city council meeting, which was one of the turning points of this thing, the city council had determined that they were going to have a resolution recommending binding arbitration. Now, they didn't have any. It's a non-binding resolution. It didn't have any authority over us. But you know what? Tom Ayers and Karen Paul stood up in that and said, after listening to drivers' stories, horror stories of what we put up with at work, they stood up and said, we want to pull our names off as co-sponsors of that bill if you don't remove the words binding arbitration. And then proceeded Democracy in Action in America, as there was I don't even know how long discussion of amendments and re-amendments and de-amendments and canceling amendments and everything else, and eventually they came out with a resolution that supported the drivers, and the city council made a commitment on Mayor Miro Weinberger's suggestion, made a commitment to have twice a month meet with the commissioners from CCTA, the board commissioners from CCTA who are appointed by the Burlington City Council, to have those two people report to the board that there's been a change in the management culture of CCTA and what's being done to make it a better place to work. So I give them all the credit in the world for that. It's not all positive and not all negative. And I sometimes get down on politicians, but I want to emphasize that they did that by a nearly unanimous vote, the City Council of Burlington, and that was a very positive step for us. And it was Karen Paul and the progressives, as usual, in general, the progressives, but it was Karen Paul and Tom Ayers who really did a lot to sway that room that night, and I wanted to thank them for that.
Fantastic. So, since our bus drivers and the CCTA are public employees, would that be an accurate?
Yeah, we're municipal employees.
What
yes.
What is the wage? What is the starting wage? What is the average wage? How much do bus drivers make?
We make $20 and 80-something cents an hour, I think. I never really look. Oh, thank you.
So you get parched. We do long interviews here. You're going to be here for like 6.5 hours.
I was like shocked.
Still starts kicking in an hour and a half.
Yeah, that's spiked.
So
we have to keep interviewing you for like another hour before.
So you're saying I should call in sick?
There's some truth serum in there. The phone number here, once again, folks, is 861-9666. We're talking with CCTA bus driver Jim Fouts about the recently resolved strike.
Yeah, and so we make $20 and change an hour. It's in the high, like it's over 50 cents. It's 80 cents or something like that. And we have a good health care plan.
Now that's the starting pay?
No, I think the drivers start right now at 17. I could be wrong. They did get a raise for the starting pay. They raised that in the new contract. They went up $1 an hour. Pretty soon it's going to be pretty much starting at almost the same, and that's fine with me.
What do the senior drivers make?
Same thing. The difference between the senior drivers is they get a little more in the benefits. They get extra personal days, extra. They get more vacation time and things like that, and they get the better work.
Better routes.
Yeah. They get to choose the work that
better
starts
schedule,
at 7 in the morning and gets off at 2.
Now, is everyone driving 40 hours a week? What's the?
No, in fact, one of the things that we've had contentions with management was how many shifts could actually be made. How many people's drivers' work schedules could actually be made to a 40-hour work week? And they, right now, about 70% of our drivers at the beginning of their work week start with 40 hours. The rest, like today, I got a phone call because next week I don't have 40 hours. So I got a phone call today asking me what I wanted to schedule next week to bring me up to 40 hours. So if somebody's on vacation or whatever, I work, maybe a piece of their work for the day, and they divide all this excess work all over the place so that the drivers end up with 40 hours. That's the way that it works.
So typically, drivers are driving.
Yeah,
40
full-time
hours.
driver will get 40 hours in a week.
Right, so it's $800 a week before taxes. That's $40,000 a year before taxes.
Yeah, basically. I mean, it's a little more than that because of the change, and then with overtime. We may have drivers. I don't work overtime if I can avoid it. I'm not an OT kind of guy, but I think I can't speak from personal experience, but I think we've had drivers make over $50,000 a year gross, with overtime, and maybe even higher, maybe even up to 55 or something like that. But I don't know. I don't work a lot of overtime, so I wouldn't know any of the overtime questions.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, it's a good livable wage job in a state that doesn't have a lot of good livable wage jobs. Mm-hmm. So we never have complained too much about that. Mm-hmm. And, did we ask for a raise initially a year ago when we first started? Absolutely. You'd be foolish to walk into a negotiation and not ask for a raise. Well, but in the end, that it never was about that for us. We accepted management's pay package quite a while ago. Not that they would ever admit that, but we accepted their pay package quite a while ago. And it became about all of these other things, and the most important thing was safety. And we won. We won a resounding victory, and it was a victory not just for us. It's a victory for every worker in the state of Vermont, and it's a victory because there aren't a lot of strikes in the labor movement anymore because the companies have managed to beat the unions down until they just knuckle under. And once again, proud as hell. We stood strong. We won a big victory and feel good about it, and rightfully so.
Awesome. That's awesome. Jim, what do you like to do in your free time since you're not a hound for overtime? How do you spend your time?
I garden. I take walks. I'm learning to play a classical flute, and I have a Native American flute that I love to play, and I sort of hack away on that. And I collect. I have a small firearms collection. I like to go out shooting. I don't hunt I'm hoping to get some chickens this year. I have 2 acres of land, and I'd like to get some chickens. And
Nice.
I'm a homebody. I just like to spend time around my house. I didn't move here I live on the Lamoille River, across the street from it, perched up above the Lamoille. So just sitting on my porch and sipping an adult beverage and looking out on the river is fine with me.
You seem like a super mellow dude. Like, just out of curiosity, how often when you're driving around the bus do you like see somebody make like the dumbass move and just like be like, "Don't, oh man, dumbass!" Just you want to yell out loud.
Well, I say a lot of things under my breath, and then a lot of times I'll ask the customers questions like, if there's anybody sitting up close to me.
You just see that idiot?
Yeah. Or I'll say, like, isn't it obvious to you that guy just doesn't know what he's doing or something like that? But we have to keep that kind of tone down. I can't say all the things I want to say, like, "Arr!"
Being on the road.
Cool. Well, is there anyone else you would like to single out, in the political sphere as either having been, very helpful or very unhelpful in the last 3 weeks or in the last year?
Oh, well, in the political sphere.
Or anyone else, related to what's gone down?
Well, I tell you what, I can tell you that this right away. The Board of Commissioners of CCTA, the appointed Board of Commissioners, has the right to rein in the management and make them toe the line and do the right thing. And for whatever reason, I think there's 13 board members. They have chosen to be union busting, worker hating board of commissioners, and I don't know why. I really don't know why. I don't know what they expect. We do our jobs. We do our jobs well. We're a very safe drivers. We do an excellent job. And all we wanted was to be left alone, and we want our union protections to be left alone. We want them to not try and bust our union. Leave us alone. Let us do our job.
So
that's why we work alone.
There's a culture of worker hostility on the board.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. That's the thing, is I don't know these people well enough. Some of the board members I talked to, and I know on a first name basis, and we have conversations, and nice people. One in particular, very nice man, but for whatever reason, they were always supportive of management, and then we find out last night that management really, that last night of negotiations, management didn't really know why they wanted part-time drivers. They just knew they wanted them.
Weird.
It's incomprehensible and incompetent that what's been going on, and it's a shame because the people of this state are paying for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hopefully with this increased oversight from the city council of the CCTA board, hopefully there'll be...
I'm hoping for the best.
Yeah. Well,
it seems like all union and labor issues are so important now, especially in the age of a Scott Walker and folks that are trying to repeal, unions' powers all around.
And we had a driver bring that up at the city council meeting, that what happened in Wisconsin can't be allowed to happen here. Right. But you guys asked about union corruption. I will share with you my own personal feelings. The unions have brought a lot of this enmity from the Republicans upon themselves, because the public sector unions have been money laundering establishments for the Democratic Party. And that's just a simple fact. The majority of union donations to political campaigns go to either Democratic causes or Democratic candidates. And let me tell you what it has gotten for the unions. This is the mass, great production that we've got from our union leaders donating our money, my money, to the Democratic Party. Is in the 1950s, 38% of Americans were represented by unions, and now about 8 or 9% are represented by unions. We're not getting much bang for our buck. The Democrats will take your money and stab you in the back, just like the Republicans. So you may have guessed I'm not a member of either of those parties.
Bernie for president.
I don't
Even
know.
though he didn't act very well in this one. He jumped on the bandwagon, too.
He didn't come out of this one smelling like a rose, did he?
well, let's
Not
talk.
in my opinion.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, I just think he could have taken a much more public stance early on. He's supposed to be the guy who represents the workers and the working class. He's supposed to be the nominal socialist in this thing. And let me tell you, my friends in the International Socialist Organization are for workers, and they're rabid about it, and they're great people. The International Socialist Organization was there for us last time we had a negotiation, and this time they're there for workers. And that's what Bernie's supposed to stand for. Is he say, the nominal socialist in the Capitol. And the fact of the matter is, 3 weeks ago, he could have come on board and said, I support the CCTA workers unequivocally. No questions asked. They're workers, I support them. And instead, we had weeks and weeks and weeks. And finally, a call out by me on Facebook. Call Phil Fermonti's phone number. That's his right-hand man here in Vermont. And just tell him you need to support the CCTA drivers. And I heard a rumor that his phone was ringing off the hooks. And finally, Bernie got involved with a public statement saying he supports the drivers, and he did some other conferencing and things like that with our leadership and the company, in which he sort of acted as a Skype mediator and discussed the issues. But that could have happened weeks ago. He could have gotten involved weeks ago. The politicians are out for the politicians, and I'm not going to stop saying that. I mean, they sometimes do the right thing, but are they doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do, like we did, a principled stand, or are they doing it because it's the grandstanding play that's going to get them some votes?
Mm-hmm. Right. And, as far as Bernie for president, the word on the street, right, is that he's going to be run as a Democrat against Hillary, so much.
I didn't hear that. word.
I know nothing about that
But
kind
I know
of
what
politics.
kind of streets you live on.
You know what, guys? I hate to cut this short, but I do have to go.
You got some bus driving to do.
I got some bus driving to do, and I'm going to try and make it over to another meeting to talk to some people. So I'm trying to keep this ball rolling, even though I had a hard time getting up this morning. I was so tired.
Well, we're famous for our late-breaking news here, and so we're glad in somewhere in an alternative universe where things are going backwards. People are just finding out about the strike and that you won.
Jim Fouts, CCTA bus driver, can't thank you enough for taking time.
Thank you for having me here.
Out of your celebratory
I will add your station
time.
to my mix on my keyboard.
Please do. The Radiator.org, 105.9 FM.
Nice to meet you. This is the slave driving boss. It's nice to meet
Yeah.
you. Oh, he's in another room? Oh, okay.
But
You
this
want me to
is
slap him as I
this
leave?
is his proxy.
His proxy.
This is
We have to get through him.
Thank you very much for having me on. And I'll say what I said yesterday. Workers of the world unite. I said that in a little speech I gave yesterday. It's about working people.
That's original. Can you cut that?
I don't even know where that's from.
okay. Thank you so much. Jim Fouts, CCTA bus driver, going back to work today after 3 weeks of being on strike. Going back to work today as a successful striker. Bus drivers consider their strike utterly successful.
Yeah, that was exciting. I mean, did you ride that whole wave of emotion and experience? I mean, these guys have been out there for 3 weeks, and I've actually passed by. I stopped one day on my run, and they were having news reporters were around, and they were doing a press statement of sorts. But it's been every day I go by, I see them all sitting there. I mean, I think what it must be like, to be at work and then just like not be at work. Being a very public figure right there on the top of Church Street, whether people agree with you or not, like standing up there and worst of all, like I mentioned, knowing that the people that you're trying to serve are the most affected by, your choices, and that.
And in winter.
In the middle of winter, all these people are walking, long distances or struggling.
Phone number here is 861-9666. That's 861-WOMM. In the 802. Great to have you with us, Formless.
Well, thank you so much, FP and Mellow Matt.
How inspiring was Jim Fouts there, actually tearing up live on air. He's really very passionately committed, and God, I mean, not that I want to, deprive the world of a great bus driver, but I sincerely hope he gets more involved in workers' rights and he's passionate, articulated. Yeah, it'd be great. He could take over this radio show.
For sure.